underground, 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 underground,
Greetings, surface dwellers. My name is Michael, and these are my chthonic musings. Today's video is my contribution for day 6 of RPG A Day 2025, and today's word is motive. Okay, folks, motive, a word with linguistic roots in the Latin word for movement, to move, related to other words such as movement, motor, motion, and emotion. Emotion itself having its roots in the Latin word for remove or displace. And so we're going to explore this topic of motive and others through the displaced story time, which I've been threatening for the past couple of videos and having it displaced with other topics or other ways of approaching the words of the day. So here we go. It's story time. So during COVID, I ran a 5th edition D&D campaign set in the world of Minaria, and I talked a little bit about that in yesterday's video, Musing 9 for day 5 of RPG A Day 2025 Ancient. So I won't go over that again. But what I will say is the premise of this campaign is that the player characters are what are called witch marked. And so they have, certain marking on their skin, and they are tied to an ancient power, a fey power, called the Witch Stone. And they don't have the full information about what's going on, but they do know that they're witch marked, and they've been having dreams or other indications that that something is happening. They're being called. There's a certain stirring, certain darkness coming. And I told my players when they were, designing their characters or making up their characters, all of this information, and that we would be starting with them as captives. Something, a trope that I typically avoid. I don't particularly like it, but it fit the start of this campaign, the launch point. In fact, the final sentence in my campaign pitch was, as dramatic a turn of events this may be in your life, somehow you're not entirely surprised, for your dreams of late had hinted at a returning darkness, and your heart tells you that you are destined to have some part in uncovering and opposing it. And without going into too much detail, yes, they eventually made contacts there while they were being held captive, and there was a sympathetic NPC, a noble lady, who kind of hinted at, there was purpose for them being brought here, and it was kind of for their own safety. And they eventually negotiated, better accommodations, still under guard, but not being held in the prison area. And then there was an event, a kind of a random event that I had put together, where there was an assault on the castle, and very specific, where goblins and bugbears had come in and made an attack, and like drew some blood from one of the NPCs who happened to be a not very sympathetic NPC. He was kind of the interrogator, let's say, for the for the castle. But then they were the goblins and bugbears were making their escape, and the PCs actually were able to come up to one of the towers and found that the that through magic, one of the guards, longbowmen, had been killed, and then one of my players, who happened to be a skilled archer himself, was very lucky and got a very lucky shot, and was able to take out like the chief shaman of the goblins as they were making their escape. Now it didn't stop the goblins from escaping, but this whole event intrigued the players, and they were determined to get to the bottom of things, and which is kind of interesting because I didn't really I just planned this as an event to introduce the idea of the conflict between the goblins and the people of the castle and the kingdom at large. But yeah, long story short, they were determined, and it was kind of funny because they were there in the castle to be kept safe, right? So that's the premise, and so they're kind of like arguing. Not arguing, but making the case that they should be allowed to pursue this mystery to find out what's going on, and the people in the castle, including this noble lady, are very protective. And it's like, I don't know, this is very dangerous. I think maybe you should just stay put, and your transportation will be here in a week, and it'll take you to where you need to be, which was all true, right? So, and I was perfectly prepared for them to do that. Just stay put, keep your nose out of things, and take your ride to the beginning of the campaign, or I should really say, the quote unquote beginning of the campaign, which we actually never got to. My players had other plans and other pursuits. So after successfully negotiating that they should be allowed to pursue this and go on this adventure, which, to be honest, was of some interest to the people in command of the castle, but they themselves couldn't commit any resources to it because they were preparing for war and had very specific objectives that they had to not be distracted from. But they did want to know what was going on. But then on the other side of it, the noble lady wanted to make sure that the players were protected. So, but they did negotiate. My players did negotiate that they would be allowed to adventure, and made their way to the village, and realized they needed to secure some sort of water transportation, and but there was really like no. It didn't make sense to me that there would be somebody. Oh, I have this spare boat that I rent out to total strangers that I've never seen before. So they were able to meet up with a retired adventurer who happened to have a magical device that he would sell to them on credit because they couldn't afford the cost of this device, and it was a swan boat, which I'm pretty sure was a magic item in 5th edition, or it's possible that I might have just reskinned the folding boat. I'm not entirely sure, but this was like a small figurine of a swan boat or a swan. I don't remember. And then with a command word, it could become It's a self-propelled, very small wooden swan themed boat that they could go down the river, down the river to try to find this goblin encampment. And so then I had to make a map. I had to prepare, and this was over several sessions, but then I had to prepare for them to go on this adventure that they were determined to go on. And so I made a map using the program Incarnate. I made a little map of what was down the river and where the goblin hideout was. And it was there was a lake that I had decided there was a lake that had at one point an outlet that then went to a short outlet that went into the river, and then over the years that was kind of eroded, so this lake almost becomes a feature part of the river, kind of merges into it. And various hills and crops and nooks and crannies and forests, and I got made a few little islands in the inside of the river. And I just also came across, as I was doing it, you play with a program and you say like, oh, what kind of features do they have? And I saw like this tower, like a rune tower, and so, oh, that would be cool. I'll put that on this island here, and it looked back, and it looked pretty good to me. Also, I should mention some people may recognize the name of the river here, the Horka River. This is from Harn by Columbia Games, and this is because the castle that I used. I did take from, not take entirely. I bought a PDF of a castle, which I think was called in Harn Dunir Keep. No, I may be thinking. No, that was. I did get Dunir Keep, but I think I used that for something else. I don't remember the name of this particular castle, but I renamed it Ald Castle. Anyhow, it was was on the Horka River, which one of the maps showed from the Harn supplement, and so I just decided to keep that name. So like, okay, that's going to be part, even though that's not part necessarily of the Minarius setting, but this Horka River eventually empties into the Clearwater River, which is part of the Minarius setting. Anyhow, I should mention that the fourth of my players actually joined the campaign in progress a couple of sessions in. After it was clear that my players were going to try to track down this goblin hideout. So what I did was when this fourth player made his character, he made a kind of a backstory of how he got how he became a captive. He was betrayed by his mother and held prisoner. And then I kind of wrote an addendum to his backstory of how he was transported from that prison without his character actually being able to tell where he was going, but a couple of things that he was able to hear and sense from inside of the hull of the boat that he was in. And then he was also kept temporarily in this very goblin hideout complex, and then taken upriver, where he was actually assisted and able to make his escape, and then he joined up with the other party. So his character had like a tiny bit of knowledge of this hideout just from the prison area and the transport and so forth. So he knew of the tower just as a landmark, let's say, and that where he was temporarily held was across from that island and the tower. But other than that, I had the other people that my players asked about this tower, or were like, "No, you don't want to go near there. When you're going down the river, stay to the left. That place is haunted. Stay far away from it." And of course, that's was those words were like magnets to my players, and I knew that that was going to be the first place that they investigated. So I did a little bit of prep work on this tower and this island. I knew that there were harpies that would harass people on the river occasionally. From a prior wandering encounter table that I had put together. So I thought, well, okay, so the harpies can nest in one of the upper floor of this tower, and then since I had already mentioned that this place was haunted or something like that, I was looking for something creepy, some other creepy components. So I put some animated thorny vines like all over the place, like covering a good part of this island. More not so much as like a monster as more like a hazard, like because there was like a lot of it. You couldn't clear out all of these vines. You had to avoid it or find a way that you could plow through it. And I was also looking around. Didn't really want to use skeletons or zombies or what have you. I should also mention, I think my players were either like second or third level by this point. And then I came across in Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes the Vampiric Mist. I thought, this is level appropriate and it seems pretty interesting, especially this part. It says that the vampiric mist is former vampires. Vampiric mists, sometimes called crimson mists, are all that remain of vampires who couldn't return to their burial places after being defeated or suffering some mishap. And so that stood out to me. I said, that's pretty cool. Let's work with that. So sure enough, as my players traveled down the river to investigate the goblins and what they're up to, the first thing they do is take a trip to that island and to the ruined tower, and along the way they find a feather from one of the harpies and correctly identify it as a harpy feather, so they're a little forewarned of what's going on, and actually use a little bit of wax in their ears to kind of mitigate some of the harpy powers. They find the tower, and those vines that I was talking about are like wrapped around most of the front of the tower, but the approach to the back of the tower is a little bit free, and in fact there's a tree that's growing up near the tower, which wouldn't have been allowed in the time when it was actually used, but after many years of disuse, you've got various vegetation growing up near the tower, including this tree. So my players use it to get up to the third floor. So I decided to make there's 3 floors, 3 total complete stories of this tower, and then the very top of the tower on top of that, open air, just a little bit of crenellation around the rim. Yeah, so they get in, and that way, through the open windows on the third floor, and confront the harpies. And I won't go through the entire thing there, but from there they observe an oncoming, what do we call, swarm, flock of sturges coming their way. So they correctly decide, considering the total number of them, decide to lay low and let the sturges pass, and they're successful in that for the most part. I think like after the swarm passed, there were like a few hangers on, so they just fought a couple of sturges. And then made their way down to the second floor, the middle floor. And this is where they encountered an unusual NPC. So I was, in a loose way, basing this NPC on the knight from Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, who's guarding the chalice. And this particular gentleman is guarding a stone box, basically. Much smaller than like a sarcophagus, or it's obvious that it's just like like the size of a chest, but completely made out of stone. And to make a long story short, my party are able to, well, first of all, I should say, this guardian is pretty nasty looking. I've got a picture up on the screen here. So there's bearded skeleton with armor. It looks pretty foreboding. And so yeah, my players were very wary at first, but to their credit, they didn't just like immediately attack and say, okay, this is a monster, we gotta attack it. So and also this guardian could not speak. He had long lost any vocal cords or any ability, so it was a little bit of charades. But so this encounter was a little bit of a puzzle encounter. And but eventually they got through to not battling with this guardian, taking his nonverbal clues that he was giving, solved the puzzle of how to open the box, and inside they found a couple of things, but one of them was a very old book, which was not in good shape. Over the time was not kind to this book, so most of the pages were all fused together, and it was going to be a challenge to read anything in this book. But one of my players, the wizard, was a bookbinder, and he had tool proficiency with like bookbinding tools or something like that, that we had introduced at the beginning when he made up his character. So he used that proficiency to try to salvage as much as he could of any of the pages, and he made a very good roll, and was able to. I had put together like 5 different clues, or 5 different passages that were like an indication of what was going on in this what happened to be like a journal from this guardian. So the first salvage passage from the journal reads as follows: "Again we appear in the wake of his dread deeds. His cursed minions are smote at the cost of 2 of our order. By my honor and by the souls of our fallen, do I swear that the life-drinker Orban shall follow his master Corfu to the pits of hell." So here we have a little bit of name dropping of the life drinker Orban. So like that's got to scream vampire to, and it did to my players, and to Corfu. Now I think I made up the Orban fellow who is a disciple of Corfu the Black by the time this is written. And Corfu is actually part of Minarian history. For about 15 years, he usurps the throne of Muitar, and he's a sorcerer of some renown, or infamy, I should say. And he is eventually brought down by betraying the wandering people, who in turn put a curse on him, a very powerful curse, which he is not able to dispel or shake off, except when he summons all of his power to locate the curse into his hand, his own hand, and then lop his hand off to get rid of the curse. And with a little bit of a history check, my players are able to get that information. They don't know who Orban is, but they do have some information, at least the one that passed the history check, of who Corfu is, because he's pretty infamous. So the second salvaged passage is much shorter, and simply says this: "By my hand, Sir Galvin, Order of the Silver Cask, sworn foe of the sorcerer and usurper, Corfu the Black." So here we get another name drop by a Sir Galvin, who could be this guardian fellow, and in fact he is, but in the Order of the Silver Cask. And so our players kind of deduce this, and they're not entirely sure, but they do check his this guardian's armor, although not in good shape, and very well pitted and weathered. It does have like a barrel motif on it, and what could be inlaid, although very tarnished, silver. So that kind of confirms that this guardian may or may not be Sir Galvin, but seems to be from this what Order of the Silver Cask, whatever that is. And again, we have Corfu the Black, because remember, my player made a very good roll and got all 5 of these rumors, but that wouldn't necessarily be the case if his roll wasn't quite as good. He could have only gotten a partial number out of the 5 rumors, and if it was really bad, he wouldn't have been able to salvage any of these passages at all. And so I should remark here that all of this is optional, right? Because they don't really need to know this information to be able to move on and fight a vampiric mist. This is all to aid them and kind of set things up, but things go as the cookie crumbles and as the dice roll dictates. They may or may not have gotten this information. They might not have decided to solve the puzzle of how to open the box. So it was all optional. It wasn't necessarily a gate that they had to pass through in order to proceed to the next encounter. So the third salvaged passage read as follows: "A silver case has been fashioned for the foul thing. Protective glyphs ward its curse from us, but we must never relax our guard against the dark magic so vile that even the Black Master sequestered and banished at the cost of his own hand." Now this, of course, ties into the history of Corfu the Black, and how he had to sequester the curse into his hand and cut it from his body in order to be rid of it. And I should also mention at this point, I said there were a few items in the stone coffer and in the stone box, and the other items were, there was a series of clay tablets, which were they were essentially effectively scrolls, but on a clay tablet form, and they had divine spells. I think most of them I took from a third-party product, probably from Cobalt Press. Additional like 5th edition compatible spells. But yeah, they were like an undead hunter's toolkit. They I don't remember all of the spells, but they all kind of adding holy energy to your weapons, and summoning a light that's the equivalent of sunlight, and things of that nature. And finally, the last item that was in that stone box was a silver hand that was covered all over with glyphs. So you can imagine what that was. So the fourth salvaged passage reads as follows. There are rumors among the Order that we are infiltrated by an acolyte of the demon conjurer Mornard. The suspicions weigh heavy and distract our purpose. If true, then may Tyros protect us all. So first of all, Tyros is, in this campaign, a lawful god of war and protection, I believe. And this this passage is really to introduce the idea that the Order's plan, they were betrayed, and it kind of ties into one of the aspects of the vampiric mist, which is called forbiddance. The mist can't enter a residence without an invitation from one of the occupants. And I don't think I double checked it, but I believe that that's taken right from the vampires. So even before this Orban, the life drinker, became the mist, he would have been a vampire. So this is kind of alluding to the fact that somebody double-crossed them and invited this vampire into the tower. And after everything goes sideways from that point, only Sir Galvin is able to, although grievously wounded, retreat up the stairs to the second floor, and then the reminding the vampire that his invitation doesn't extend to the second floor. It shuts the door. For story purposes, I just imagine that they had a plan that kind of kept the front door secure after the vampire entered. So he was kind of trapped here, and Sir Galvin could kind of make his final death move and make his preparations and prepare this box, and then kind of be protected even after not his full death, but his departure from life, let's say, to be a guardian until somebody else can come by and take up the task. Particularly the task of being the guardian of the Hand of Corfu. And the fifth and final salvaged passage from this journal read as follows. The life drinker has taken our bait. He is brought here by the corrupted living. We await his assault on this tower when light fades. Stand or fall, we have hidden 2 of our numbers in the nearby wood to cast his death box to the river and prevent his escape from this island. And so this passage, reinforces the fact that the Order of the Silver Cask were, setting up a trap for this vampire. And the vampire was brought to the island in his coffin, by his living but corrupted minions, and once he was on there, they had a plan to, at the very least, even if they couldn't be successful in defeating the vampire, they would toss his coffin into the river. And since the island is entirely surrounded by flowing water, running water, the vampire would be unable to leave and be trapped on the island. At least that was the plan. And I'm sure there may be holes in this entire scenario, but it worked out pretty well. And I have to say, my players were quite uncertain if they were actually going to, since they had been given like the undead hunter's toolkit in the form of divine scrolls, even though they're clay tablets and such, and giving these warnings that they were going to be facing an actual vampire. So that was pretty interesting. And I should say there was a door behind this this encounter with the guardian and the stone box, and they knew they could see the door, which they then opened and proceeded down to the first floor to confront the vampiric mist. But it was a pretty interesting encounter. But I wanted to bring it up because the messages from beyond in this journal. And although I couldn't, it was kind of displaced from the day of RPG a Day 2025, where message was the word of the day, and then I figured that although these passages were old, I think I calculated it was like 119 years from the time of these events until the time the player characters arrived. Which is pretty old, but not ancient. And then I got off on a tangent about Mineria and Sleestacks and what have you. But here we are. And there's certainly not only messages involved, but motives as well. Right from the very beginning of starting out as captives and having no ability to move. Talk about being stalled out, to gaining their freedom and ability to move about slightly, and then acquiring the magical swan boat and so forth. So physically, the physical motive capacity to be able to move around, as well as following their own path. They decided that this is what they wanted to do. They wanted to go on to this adventure, and so could be kind of taken as a little bit of a lesson if you have trouble with players, grabbing onto your plot hooks or your story hooks. You may want to try a little reverse psychology and say like, "Oh no, I wouldn't do that. You shouldn't visit that place. It's a terrible place, and I don't care how much treasure they say is buried there. I would never go." And then see them quickly, get their supplies and things together and head out on the journey to this terrible place. And so, until I resurface, may your successes be many and your failures be memorable.